Welcome back, Focus Learners, to today's Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here with us because today we are unpacking a truly fascinating, radical, and honestly deeply profound framework. We're looking at a text by Xu Feng titled The 8 Conditions of Spiritual Thinking. Now, if you're the kind of person who loves philosophical texts that challenge you to completely reevaluate how you engage with the world, well, this is going to be right up your alley. The core premise here is about living purely, and I mean literally 100% purely, by the heart's first impulse. We're going to break down exactly what that means, the dramatic origin story behind it, and the very strict conditions required to actually achieve it. Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with defining spiritual thinking, then move into a fatal turning point, explore the heavenly lifestyle, break down the 8 core conditions, and finally, look at the final hurdle.
Let's kick things off with Section 1, Defining Spiritual Thinking. And yeah, it is definitely a paradox.
There's a real playful irony here right out of the gate, you know? We're spending this whole explainer analyzing a concept that literally demands the complete and utter absence of analytical thought. Xu Feng gives us a very specific definition here. Spiritual thinking actually means having zero thinking. None. It's defined as making judgments and decisions quickly, based entirely and solely on that very first impulse of the heart. There is absolutely no calculation involved. For those of us who are super used to weighing pros and cons, it's a really jarring concept, but it's a fascinating one. The whole idea is that true spiritual thinking bypasses the brain entirely. Now, what's really interesting about this is how the author explicitly pits our greatest intellectual tools directly against our spiritual intuition. On one side, we have rational thinking, our knowledge, our life experience, our logic. And according to the text, these aren't just unhelpful, they actually actively pull you away from spirituality. Why? Because the moment you start thinking logically, you give your brain the chance to override and deny that pure first impulse of the heart. So in this framework, logic is literally the enemy of intuition. And Xu Feng is very protective of this concept. In fact, he warns us that defining spiritual thinking too strictly is actually dangerous to the practice itself. He points out that once something is too rigidly characterized, it kind of loses its originality. Its magnificent and vast beauty just gets locked inside what he calls the prison of wisdom. So as we go through these conditions today, just keep in mind that we're looking at a rough outline drawn from the author's practical experience. It's something that is meant to be comprehended and practiced in real life, not just intellectually stuffed into a box.
Which naturally brings us to Section 2, a fatal turning point.
So how exactly does someone arrive at such a radical departure from normal everyday logic? Well, it wasn't born out of some quiet meditation retreat. It came from a sudden, violent trauma. Picture this. A severe, terrifying car accident. The author manages to get out of the wreckage, looks at the scene, and instantly, without a single shred of analysis or logical deduction, the thought just arrives: God saved me. That was the raw, immediate result of spiritual thinking. No analysis needed, just an ironclad revelation. Then, a mere 3 days later, a Portuguese couple randomly knocks on his door wanting to teach him about the Bible. This rapid sequence of events immediately solidified his realization. It was the greatest creator who saved him. His faith just bypassed his brain and settled instantly, deep into his bones. His old life effectively ended right there in that wreckage. And this triggered a monumental pivot. Talk about a complete 180. Before the crash, the author was incredibly ambitious in a very worldly way. He was actually planning to start a multinational corporation. But after surviving, his life no longer belonged to him. It belonged to the greatest creator. He abandoned those corporate ambitions completely and dedicated himself entirely to seeking the true meaning of life and existence. This total surrender leads us perfectly right into Section 3, the heavenly lifestyle. According to Xu Feng, stepping away from rational thinking didn't just empty his mind, it actually unlocked cosmic mysteries. Suddenly, without needing to actively ponder or study anything, these massive mysteries of the universe just began to flow freely into his awareness. For instance, he suddenly understood the existence of 36-dimensional spaces. He states that he didn't even need to think about the origins of the universe or human beings. He would literally just open his computer and the information would pour out through his keyboard effortlessly. It's like turning on a tap. And it didn't stop there. Along with those 36-dimensional spaces, he also understood 20 collective worlds, which he used to refer to as parallel worlds. He effortlessly detailed the classification of people, the 8 levels of thinking, and the 8 characteristics of the Tao.
This massive, complex output of philosophical and cosmic theory was produced completely free from the heavy strain of rational thought.
And the craziest part, it wasn't just theory, it was actually put into practice. The author claims to have created an unprecedented lifestyle for his followers, who are known as Chenyuan Celestials. They live together in what he calls the second home, which is described as a literal replica of the thousand-year world of heaven. And here is the real kicker. Despite the immense physical, mental, and organizational work required to build a community like this, he claims to have completed the whole shebang in a perfectly relaxed and happy state. How? Because he relied purely on spiritual thinking, entirely bypassing the exhausting nature of using his brain.
All right, let's slow down the pace a bit for Section 4, the 8 core conditions. So, the crucial point is, how exactly does one achieve this state of effortless existence? Well, this framework demands a perfect, harmonious balance between your internal reality and your external actions. Internally, you must let God completely occupy your body, mind, and spirit. You have to exist in a state of absolute emptiness, completely free from any obsession or attachment. And externally, that translates into acting entirely without intention, meaning you have absolutely zero underlying desire or hidden purpose behind your actions. You must also be completely truthful and 100% genuine, utterly devoid of any element of falsehood.
Now, this brings us to the fourth condition, and I have to say, this is perhaps the most intense and poignant mandate in the entire text. To truly achieve spiritual thinking, you must metaphorically live in a continuous state of ego death. You must place yourself in a state of total, unwavering surrender. The you that wants things, the you that plans things, the you that desires things, that version of you must cease to exist completely. Let's move to and see how this builds into the final conditions. Condition 6 mandates that you literally never hurry or become agitated. You associate with people naturally as they come and go, taking advantage of opportunities without feeling any real joy or sorrow about it. Condition 7 demands absolute selflessness. No attachment to yourself, no attachment to others, not even to any particular ideology. You just let events unfold naturally without trying to gain anything or avoid any loss. And finally, condition 8, you must attain a state of possessing nothing. You control absolutely nothing and you possess absolutely no one. Which brings us to our fifth and final section, the final hurdle. If you've been listening to these 8 conditions and thinking to yourself, wow, that sounds practically impossible, you are absolutely right. And this brilliantly illustrates just how incredibly strict this philosophy actually is. Shufang states very clearly that if there is even the slightest, tiniest bit of insincerity in what you say or do, the entire spiritual edifice just crumbles. If your body, mind, and soul meet the 8 conditions, boom, you are a spiritual thinker. But if you harbor even a single drop of self-interest or desire, you are instantly locked out. You simply cannot enter the state of spiritual thinking. It's a completely all-or-nothing paradigm. We've explored a lot today. The radical shift from logic to pure intuition, the complete and total surrender of the ego, and the mandate to possess nothing and desire nothing. It's a massive challenge to literally everything we are taught about navigating our lives. So I want to leave you with this to really think about. If even the slightest, most microscopic bit of self-interest completely prevents spiritual thinking, is true selflessness genuinely possible for us in the modern world? Can we actually truly operate solely on the heart's first impulse? It is a profound question to wrestle with. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep exploring.